Perfect. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this showcase. It's our very first spring showcase in 2024. If you have joined us before, this is not the first time we are doing showcases. I think this is our third or fourth year almost. So we have been doing this for a while. Each year, we look at different topics. We try to shift the focus to some of the things you may be interested in. And this year, we are doing the same thing. It's slightly different than what we have done before. This time, we are actually showcasing some of the work done through Alpha Plus with the community organizations, advisory groups, working groups to bring resources, information, and ideas to the community. This is our first showcase, May 21st. We are focusing on open educational resources collection. And we are going to talk about how it was set up. We are going to have Christine and Guylaine share information and resources. So again, welcome and thank you for joining us. Now, in case you need the link to the site, I'm going to paste it in the chat. So you will be able to open it in a separate window if that's helpful for you. We will be sharing the slides on the screen as we go. Now, if you have any questions, please feel to let me know. The quick breakdown of how we're going to go about the session today, it's an hour and a half in total. We will do introductions and housekeeping information, then presentation and activities, and that's where Christine and Guylaine will shine today. And then we will have Q&A and wrap up as well. Of course, if you have any questions as we go, please put them in the chat. I'll try to monitor and make sure that we answer the questions. So, quick introductions. Christine and Guylaine are my colleagues at Alpha Plus. We work together through different projects and initiatives. Christine is our policy and research specialist, and later on, I'll let the two of them introduce themselves a bit more if they would like to. And Guylaine is our organizational development specialist. I'm also organizational development specialist. Guylaine and I, we do some coaching. I focus more on English. Guylaine does English and French. And if you recall, or you may recall, when we had Alpha Plus Library, Guylaine is one of our librarians who worked on the resources. So there's a bit of a connection between that resource history and the library history and how some of our collections are set up right now. I also want to mention we do have our interpreter, Rebecca, with us. So wave to Rebecca if you can. This is just to say hello and make sure that we provide the support to our community. Again, if there's anything else we can do to accommodate your needs, please let me know. Now, we have been using Zoom for a long time, but there's always a few extra tips that we can share with you. So first of all, Rebecca's screen is spotlighted, so her video will be showing most of the time, maybe not the first video, but somewhere between the 3 and 4 videos we will be spotlighting today. I'm spotlighted as well as Rebecca, and then Christine and Guylaine will be spotlighted as we go. If you need a pin, so a pin tool in Zoom allows you to kind of skip one of the videos on your screen. You need to let me know. It's something that I can enable for you, and then you can use that for your specific use. It's not something that's just generic for everyone. So if that's helpful for you, just send me a message and I'll enable pinning options for you. Now, if you need the video to be a bit bigger, there is an option to resize your screen and also change the way you look at the screen. So a few screen captures on our slide will show you that there's a side-by-side option in the viewing where you have the speakers. So that's the spotlighted ones. But also, you will see that there's side-by-side gallery. I can see that some of the muting needs to happen there. Here we go. So you can choose what kind of viewing options you have and then resize the screen. To resize the screen, you will have a gallery view, and there will be this bar that shows between what we share on the screen and the videos of the participants. There's a tiny line that will show up, and then you will be able to move it to the left or right to make the screen bigger or smaller for you. So I hope that this helps with your viewing experience when you participate in the session today. Now, keep in mind, as we go through the session, we will really invite you to use the chat to ask questions, to share your ideas. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand, turn on your video, let me know, and we'll make sure that you have time and space to speak or sign as well. Okay, I think it's time to start with our land acknowledgement. So give me 1 second. It is a bit longer sentence, so I have to read it a bit. Let's begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples. Before I do that, let me just mute. So just a quick reminder, please mute yourself if you can. It really helps us with the work we are doing and the presentation. Thank you so much. So going back to the land acknowledgement, we begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, Zoom, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory for all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Now,
okay.
You will notice.
So from here,
oh, yeah, there's still somebody mute. When we're participating and joining, sometimes it happens that we accidentally mute and unmute our screens. Now, you will see that we have a beautiful map of native land with different colors and sections. This is a find from Christine. So Christine, thank you for sharing that. We really wanted to share with you because it helps you find information about the territories, the different languages and treaties of indigenous peoples where you live and around the world. So on our site, we include the link. I'm going to add it to our chat as well in case you would like to see or use that specific website as well. And I know that we started, but we still have more participants coming in. So thank you so much for joining us. If you join us a bit late, we are just going through the introductions. Now, most of the session today will be on the OER collection, Open Educational Resources Collection, that Christine and Guylaine have worked on. There's many more people involved, and again, they will tell you more about that. But we wanted to make sure that we share with you why the collection is important and what it looks like, how it's set up, how the resources were selected. And we also want to touch on the licensing or Creative Commons licensing and the criteria that was used to set up the collection and choose specific resources. Now, Christine and Guylaine have some exciting time for you as well to give you time to explore the collection. They will share some of the interesting sites as well. And also, we hope that based on the information you learned today, you will be able to help us get involved in some way or help us identify some of the priorities for you as you work on the collection where you may want to modify the resources or use the resources in a slightly different way. And again, Christine and Guylaine will give you a bit more information about that. Now, during the session, we will be using a tool called Slido. If you came to Zoom sessions before, we have used it in the past. Slido tool allows us to share questions with you and get your feedback and ideas, and also to involve you in a different way. So you'll be able to go to a separate web page where you'll be able to answer the questions. Or if you have your mobile phone handy just in front of you, you will be able to slide a QR code on the screen to participate and answer the questions. The way you participate is totally up to you. We just want to make sure that you have access to the questions we are sharing with you today. And we are going to have 3 questions that we are going to go through. The very first one is, before going into the OER, we want to ask you if you know what OER really is. How would you define it? What does it mean to you based on the information you have up to date about OER collection? So on the screen, you're going to see the QR code that you can scan with your phone and answer the questions, or you can go to our website, slido.com, and then there is a code you need to enter. So you just type in that code and then you'll be able to answer the questions. Your answers will be showing up on the screen and will allow us to get a bit of information where you're coming from when it comes to the collection. As you're working on giving us some ideas and feedback, I'm going to just let you know that I'm going to hand it over to Christine. So Christine is going to take it from here after we get your feedback. So take 1 minute or 2 minutes just to answer the questions, okay? Perfect. So we can see some of your answers coming in. Fantastic. So Christine, I'm going to hand it over to you. Anytime you feel like you want to jump in, go ahead.
I'm quickly writing notes. What people
It's going to be recorded. You don't have
Yeah.
to.
Oh no, just to understand
Absolutely.
where sort of as we pool our knowledge, new to me. That's great. We've got lots of different um, responses and a range of understanding. So that's just great. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So I do have a kind of formal definition, but words like free to share, made specifically for education, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, open sources, curation and collection, those are all words that we can talk about that are in this definition. Is there anything else that jumped out at you, Monica?
No, I like that some of our participants are surprised they're free, which is fantastic.
Excellent, excellent. And yes, it's always about education, and it began with higher education and post-secondary. That's kind of where the movement began. Yeah, great.
Perfect. We have one more participant typing. I'm going to wait for that person,
Okay.
and then we can jump to the next slide. That's okay. What I like about this slide, and then you can see it on the screen as well, the system actually tries to pick up on some of the vocabulary, what kind of jumps out, what's repeated in the responses. So it's always nice to kind of get that feedback as we go. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. Christine?
So here's more.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Gillian.
I wasn't sure if it was my turn or your turn.
Oh, okay. I was.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's Christine, I think. Okay, up to you.
So here's a bit more of a formal definition, and we're going to talk about some of these concepts because it does have to do with copyright and what's now called openly licensed or resources licensed with Creative Commons licenses. And we'll talk more about these things. But yes, it allows people to freely download resources, importantly, change them. So when we have certain types of open resources, you are free to modify them, the content, and the formats, which is often very important. You're also free to remix them or combine them with other resources and really share in many ways that just aren't possible if something's under a copyright. Okay, and I think the next one is Guylain's.
Yes, that's my turn. So we have a bit of a history here. Christine created this line of what we've been doing at Alpha Plus, creating and managing collections of resources. So it started in the early 90s, actually, when the Toronto Public Library, the Toronto Reference Library, as part of the International Literacy Year, started this literacy collection that was going to be made available to practitioners. So eventually Alpha Plus started taking care of that collection. So we were a lending library and we lended books across the province. So we use mail. We mailed the books and the books were mailed back to us. I was there at the time. I had the honor of being part of that beginning. And then later, in around 2009, we started a collection of resources that were available on the web because the web was starting to fill with resources that could be useful to practitioners. So we called it the Web Index, and we had online resources that were cataloged. They were searchable through keywords, so that these resources didn't have to be mailed anymore. They could be accessible through a link. And then starting in around 2014, we started our coaching activity. Monica and I were part of that. And through the coaching activities, we did continuously share resources, share tools with programs who were starting to integrate technology. And then more recently, in 2017, we built a small collection of apps. So this collection is apps that are useful to learners and practitioners. It's on our website currently. And then when the pandemic came in 2020, we saw that practitioners were struggling because their habits, they had to change their habits. They could no longer access their printed materials that they were on site, or they couldn't share them the same way. So that's when we started to look at open educational resources that would be online and that practitioners could take and modify and use them freely for free with their learners, and where they could be able to change maybe the format or the content so that it suited what they were doing with their learners.
Hey, and I would say it really was the pandemic that it got us motivated and compelled us to really look for resources. But at the same time, there was a huge increase in resources for our field, and many of them also from K to 12. So we'll talk a bit about that later. But I think that era really helped bring OER into more of a option for people. And part of OER is, so we just want to underscore, we're not creating anything. These are all curated resources. So these are resources that we search for. We have certain criteria about what we want to include. We have certain topics, clear aims about the resource collection. And the other part of the curation process, sort of the TED part of curated, is also about working together to modify, to find the resources that could be of most use to people. And often, as mentioned, they can be from K to 12, or they can be from the United States or the United Kingdom or Australia. And they need some content changes. They need some modifications for the content to fit better in LBS in Canada, in foundational learning programs, or the system here in Ontario. And they might also need format changes, because most people are kind of in a hybrid situation where in-person is, you have in-person resources, but it would be really helpful to use some of the same resources online too. So we're quite aware of that, and that'll be the next phase of development that we'll talk about today too. Okay.
Oh, I think that's my turn now. So as we started the work, Christine and I, on the OER collection, we did think that we needed help from instructors in the field to get their input to make sure that the collection we were building was really going to answer the needs. So a working group, an advisory group, worked with us, and you can see their names here on the slide, and we thank them very much. They were their input was most valuable. So they helped us with establishing criteria for including resources. We're going to talk about those a bit later, but to make sure that we have criteria so that our collection really has answers the needs of the field. Also, we develop a system with them, with their assistants, to illustrate what's allowed for each type of resource. So we'll see that later too. And they also made good suggestions. They helped us find resources so that we could build this collection. So we are very happy and proud to have worked with this advisory group.
And I'm going to just quickly jump in here, because with showcases, when we showcase things, we don't only want to showcase our work, it's also the work of the community or advisory group members that actually comes together to make the resources and support that we are able to offer better and important and valuable.
So on the website, this is a screenshot of our website. So you could do a Google search and find the OER library. But if you go to our website, which is alphaplus.ca, under technology resources, you have to click on resource library, which is this is not the OER, this is a general library that we have on our website. And once you click on the resource library, you have different resources. And one that is featured at the top is the OER library. So you can access it through this path. And then you access the OER library, which is on a separate site. So I guess you could move to the next slide, Monica. Thanks. So this is on a separate site than our site. It's a Google site that we've used to create the OER library. And we have, Christine will soon talk about the different subjects that are on the site, but you can find them on the left. And we also have some information about the licenses and how we've sort of coded the resources so that you can quickly see what's possible to do with them. And well, since I also work on the Francophone side of things at Alpha Plus, since we saw that the OER library was really answering some needs, we thought we would look into what it could be in French. There aren't as many resources, OER resources in French, but I've been working with a small group of people exploring what we could do. So we're working on this pilot site to assemble a small collection of OER resources.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Guylaine. So now that you know where to find the collection, that there's a French version, or a way to share the resources in French, we're going to ask you another question. And the question this time is, have you explored our OER collection? And you will have a multiple choice option there. So you can let us know if you looked at the topics already or if actually really new. So again, as you're sharing your responses, our screen will change to give us the updates. But that will give us a general idea of how much you know and how much you may want to learn about the OER collection. Perfect. It's lovely to see how those numbers are kind of shifting and changing. And we can see that many of you haven't really explored the collection yet. So 56% out of 61 who are on the screen with us right now haven't had a chance to explore the collection. So this is perfect timing to give you some ideas and then highlight some of the things that you may not have a chance to look at before. Christine, I'll give you a chance to sort of wait a few minutes to see how many more responses are going to come in, but feel free to let me know if you want to jump to the next screen.
Okay. And I just want to emphasize this is what exactly the presentation is about, a good introduction and a good chance for you to ask some questions and take a look at the collection. Okay, I'll move on then, Monica. There we go. So the collection's organized with 10 content topics. So it is a Google site, and the content topics can be accessed with a side menu. It was getting too busy putting them across the top on a site. So you'll see a side menu where you can access every topic, but you'll also get a little sneak peek just scrolling down the landing page where we have all of the topics plus any sub pages or topics. So you can go right into something specific that suits your context and who you're teaching. Okay, and I'll go to the next one. Another part of the site, particularly with the reading, writing, literacy, supports, and math numeracy topics, we've tried to group them in a difficulty level. And we know These are not what Ontario uses, the OALCF levels. These are much more general ideas of difficulty that we are using grade level equivalencies. So level 1 is a beginner reader up to grade 3. Level 2 is grades 4 to 8. And level 3 is considered a secondary equivalency, 9 to 12, addressing anyone who might be doing GED and the new Canadian credential, preparing for post-secondary entry. And couple of reasons we've used that is people get a sense right away of the difficulty. They get a sense, they understand generally. These are equivalencies, not specific, but people get a general sense of what this means. But also these 3 phases really do represent 3 large phases of development, especially with literacy. So it made it quite easy and ideal to organize it this way. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide just to show you an example of an entry. It's got quite a few details on it. So if you go to a specific entry, and here's one under reading, we try to either put in the resource and embed it right into the site. So boom, there it is. And if you've used Google Sites, you know you can kind of scroll through when you see that embedded resource, and you can make a quick decision about its usefulness. Every entry is the resource. It is the instructional material. So we're not sending you off to a website that seems like it might have a whole bunch of useful things. We've done that part. We've gone to all those websites. There were over 100 that we looked at and scrolled through the pages to find what we thought were really the usable parts of other resource collections. So we've tried to bring the ready-to-go instructional material, whether it's a PDF, videos, online modules, slide sets, documents. We've tried to get you a one-click link to that resource. There's a brief overview just to tell you what the resource is about. Links back to the original site, so if you think, wow, if they did that, what else do they have that maybe would be of interest to you? So you can get back to the source, the original site. And we're going to talk a little bit more about a couple of other things. So you'll always see for some of the major topics, the levels, and you're going to see a coding about the allowable uses, whether it's copyrighted or modifiable. And we'll explain that to you. Hopefully you'll get used to that pretty quickly, but green is go. We've used the green, amber, and red system. And we'll explain how that works. For many resources, and you've probably had this experience, you find some great things on a site, and then those wonderful resources disappear. So whenever possible, following copyright regulations that we need to follow, we've taken them off a site and put them into our own Google Drive folders. And we've tried to do that whenever possible. Great. Maybe the next one. Oh, here we get into the tricky part a little bit. Yeah.
Thanks, Christine. I'm sorry, I was just kicked out of the presentation. I don't know if you noticed, I disappeared for a bit. So just in case it happens again, and my connection seems fine, but it just happened to me. So I'm back. So on most OER resources found on the web use what's called the Creative Commons licensing. It's a way of describing what can be done with a resource. So Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization who has come up with a system to provide the details of a license. And it's basically based on 4 items. And you'll find that throughout our OER collections. You'll see the resources and the statement of the license. So if you see the BY, or the little guy, this refers to attribution. So who created the work, the resource. So when you see that, if you're going to use the resource, you have to make sure that you provide credit to the person who was the original creator. And then you can sometimes see the NC. So it's the $ with the bar over it. So this means that a resource cannot be used for commercial purposes. When you see that, you cannot use it for commercial purposes. Then there's the ND. So it's the equal sign. That means that no derivatives or adaptations of the work can be done. So if you're using a resource that has an equal sign, you can't change it. You can't modify it. You can use it as it is. And then if you see the little circle with an arrow, so it's SA, this one means that if you adapt something, you must share it under the same terms as the original work. So it's quite simple, and I've put a link here to the Creative Commons site if you ever want to know a bit more. So you can move to the next slide, Monica. So as Christine was mentioning, on our site, we have provided a color coding to help you identify what can be done with a resource. So with the green one, it's modifiable. There's no copyright, so you might have to attribute the work. You might have to you wouldn't be able to use it in for commercial purposes if it has the $ with the bar, and so on. So these are resources that you can modify and use in the classroom. I haven't talked about the last one with the 0, but just so you know, if you ever see that, I don't know if there's any on our OER collection, but the 0 means it's in the public domain. That means that you can use it freely, can be used freely. You don't even have to provide attribution. You don't have to provide any credit for the resource. So the yellow ones, the one that are identified in yellow, you can use them for instructional use. You can share them with learners, but you cannot modify them. So there's another level. So these ones, you can use them, cannot be modified. And then the red ones, they're copyrighted in the more traditional sense. You can't make any changes, and you can share or copy up to 10% as it is in the regulation for educational purposes. And that excludes workbooks, which can't be copied or shared. So we have a few of those in the resource collection, not very many, but we wanted to, we thought they were good resources, so we wanted people to know that they exist.
Are there any questions there? That's quite a lot, but you'll get used to the color coding. You'll see, we've tried to make it simple with that color coding system.
I'm just waiting to see. I know Simone had a question. So Simone, if you would like to ask your question, I'm going to spotlight you. Just give me 1 second. Here is Simone. Go ahead.
Hi. So I do understand that there are open licenses, and I understand a little bit. Sorry, somebody's just walking by. I'll say hi. And I see the different symbols across there, you know, like, and then it says CC, CC. Then there's the SA. The other ones, the font's small. I can't quite see them all. So are those the same acronyms that we just saw?
Yes, you're talking, Simone, about the ones you see on the slides, the current slide that's on the screen, if there's the same as what we saw before.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, they are the same. So maybe I skipped too fast. So the ones we saw before, I named the four that are kind of pillars. And in
Okay,
order,
okay, nope, okay, I see them. Okay,
okay,
okay.
it's clear.
All right, so then, okay, so that tells us that if we look at those symbols, then we follow them accordingly. So for
Yes,
example, if it's the red, we really shouldn't be using that unless we have paid to use it, right?
right.
But the
Sort
green
of.
we
Sort.
can use.
Yeah. It is tricky. I will explain. We'll explain. It's tricky. In general, yes, copyrighted is paid access and proprietary.
But there could be exceptions, and I think we'll have a piece
Yes.
about that as well.
Good.
Any other questions
Okay.
for
Okay.
Christine or Guylaine about the copyright before we move
So
on?
when we were thinking about the yellow and the red, sorry, someone's just getting my attention. Sorry, I'm busy. Okay. Sorry about that interruption. Um, so when we look at the proceed with caution ones, and is that a paid one too? I'm just trying to understand which ones we might need to pay for.
Not in our collection. So the next slide is about the criteria. And the number one criteria was free. So, all right. So in this now in other collections,
Okay.
of course,
Okay.
teachers and professionals and publishers will produce materials for educational purposes that are proprietary. You have to pay for them. They're behind, you have to subscribe. So as much as possible, the main criteria was free. And then an additional layer, no distracting ads. So we had pretty strict criteria. So free, no distracting ads on the websites, reproducible, shareable, copyable, mostly modifiable. Now we get into kind of the restrictions or limitations that we faced. So most are modifiable. All are ready to use, as I mentioned. That means you're given the workbook for the student. You're given the guidelines for the teacher. So there's things that are ready to go. You can put in your hands and decide, does this work for me? Importantly, resources that are directed to the teacher, they're meant for teachers. They're not just what I call the DIY, the do-it-yourself materials for learners. We do have some of those, but as much as possible, we would look for that with teaching explanations that would say, well, how can I integrate this? How can I use this? What should I think about when I use this? Most of them are available without you even getting an account. So we tried, but sometimes to get the really good stuff, we had to be a little flexible on those access criteria. So the other part of the criteria is ensuring good quality and relevant materials for you. Organized by the topics that you talk about of how you teach, reading, writing, numeracy, math, phonics, whatever it might be, plus topics of interest to learners. Looking for really empowering resources for learners, responding to the actual literacy and numeracy demands that learners might encounter in further education or employment. And sometimes, if we could, including some innovative and research-informed methods and strategies to help you, sort of expand your repertoire.
So before we continue, just to make sure that Simone, is this helpful in clarifying the different Okay, perfect. There will be more.
I'm good. Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. Go
So,
ahead, Christine.
okay, yeah. So, Monica, on this next one, we'll take a look at some of the resources. We'll go and look on the site, so you can watch my time.
Yes.
We've heard over the last couple of years, and we've asked and heard back sort of what educators were looking for the most. What couldn't they find? We really understood that with the pandemic, suddenly that bookshelf, your binders, your folders weren't going to be as useful. And the big one, of course, is workbooks. We know there's a lot of workbooks in use in programs, and all of those workbooks suddenly weren't as useful either in hybrid settings. So what we heard was finding resources that address lower level reading, writing, and math. And that's one of the reasons. I don't have a specific thing to show you, but that underpins the reason why you see the topics organized the way they are, why we spent so much effort on those areas and put the levels in to help you navigate that section to get resources that might be useful for you. Okay, maybe we'll go take a look at the numeracy example. We also heard people ask for resources around financial literacy. So we have a section, numeracy in everyday life, with workbooks. And I just wanted to bring your attention, if you haven't heard of this organization, Prosper Canada. They do talk, they're just about financial knowledge and importantly, financial empowerment for citizens. So it's not sort of teaching the basics and making assumptions about what learners might know and might not know, because learners know a lot about dealing with finances. So we really appreciated the types of topics from Prosper Canada. And if you scroll down, there's so many useful things, from workshops, full courses that you can access, little tip sheets. So if you have very specific financial questions from learners, you can look and pick and choose things together. Indeed, some of these might be higher level, but of course they're meant for an educator to work with a learner. So for you to obtain some of the knowledge that you might need and confidence in maybe discussing some things, and then to share a few exercises or activities with learners. So Prosper Canada, terrific resource. Another one, people have asked for resources around civic engagement and voting. And people might know of quite a few of some of these, but there really are outstanding resources created in this area. And we've tried to list them all, and some of them are just directly online. Some of them are complete sort of lessons that would work in a K-12 setting. But particularly, I mean, Elections Canada is terrific if you are needing material to use to work with your learners. Okay. And we were very careful. This is actually a good example, Monica. When we saw things like grade 5 or grade 10, just think of it as that difficulty level. We screened out things that were childish or but when it comes to topics, adult topics like elections, they work really well. It's fine. But we were careful about screening out a tone or content that wasn't appropriate. Yeah. Thanks. Maybe we'll take a look at the next one. Wellness and connection. I know a lot of people are also talking about how to address trauma and learners who might experience trauma. And I just wanted to draw people's attention to a site and an expert who's been working in the field since the early 90s. The term then was violence, addressing violence and learning, how violence impacts learning. But the parallel today is trauma. So I just pulled a couple things off her site. The Learning and Violence, LAVA, Learning and Violence Advocacy Network, just to get you engaged with some of the content and the site. And it's again an excellent resource and something that you might find very, very useful. So there's a few others that Monica we have found. So I urge you to explore some of those.
There you go.
Okay.
Internet.
Oh, that's okay. What was that one was always about, let's see.
If you just,
I think on that page, oh, Learning for Justice activities. So if you scroll down a bit, Monica, people are also very concerned with misinformation. Actually, this is actually showing you, these are different formats we found. Sometimes PDF, like the first one. The second one are files that you can embed into a learning management system. So just an example of how the resources have different formats. And I think if you keep scrolling, Monica, we'll get to the example. Oh, I think it's near the bottom.
I just want to change the view here. That's
Oh,
a better
sure.
view. Okay.
There we go. Thank
There we
you.
Mozilla.
So a few. So this one stood out too because of its comprehensiveness and the way it addressed topics around misinformation, misleading, manipulative, and harmful information. So it had a combination. It's meant for, it's designed for teachers. So it's, it's lessons, it's concepts, it's ideas, it's discussions, but it also had some engaging videos and just some excellent content. And one more, Control F and Civics. This is a Canadian organization. So if you want to get right online and explore ideas and strategies and concepts around misinformation, these are two excellent resources to look at.
And Christine,
yeah.
Sorry, just to interrupt. I can see Courtney in our chat actually said that Control F from Civics. Love this resource.
Oh, great. Thanks. Great to hear people are familiar. You can see some of these have an orange sort of copyright. They're made for instructional use. Share all you want. They're free. There's no accounts, but of course, there'd be no modifications permitted.
Perfect.
Okay.
This is awesome. Okay.
Great. So the next one, why do we have a couple of copyrighted resources? These two were a surprise to us. They're from American sites, and the US has, I think, some broader understandings of copyright for educational use. But what we found are two sites, thanks to one of our advisory members. One of them is ESL Bits, and the other one is Now Comment. But what they contain are full texts of popular fiction, nonfiction, really compelling titles, accompanied with audio. This is the dream of helping with reading and literacy. So the text is on the screen and the learner controls the audio. So it's read aloud, allowing learners to explore texts that are culturally, cognitively at their level, and learning the the literacy, the mechanics gradually through audio and reading at the same time. There, yes, ESL Bits is really good. I highly recommend it. So if you want to click on ESL Bits, Monica, we can just show people. And is there a title there that anyone, I can't quite see, but some of these are YA, young adult reads. Maybe that one with Kristen Hanna. The Nightingale. I don't know the plot, but so if you and scroll down to the table of contents. So the learner, you can access the first chapter, any of the chapters, just to see. And if you click on one of those, look at that. You can control the audio and read at the same time.
Wow.
It's quite amazing. So they do, of course, they're copyrighted, have to be read and used within the site. Yeah. I was just very excited to find those.
So if you go to the website and use it as it is, that's fine. You're not breaking the copyright. Okay.
Well, you can go to the website and use as is, and I think that's how they get around a copyright restriction. And it's very specific. It's for educational use, but that's their considerations. It's available for us to use. Yeah,
That's amazing. Wow. And this one?
Yeah, that's okay. That one's a little trickier to navigate, but the titles, it's worth it because look at some of these titles. Yeah. Worth exploring and just taking a little more time to navigate it than ESL bits.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right.
Another surprise in the next screen. This falls into the it's free category. You don't need to pay for comprehensive phonics programs. So we found two excellent resources that were very comprehensive, all about for phonics, and included games, activities, extensive notes for the teacher, mini tests, manipulative kind of cards and materials that you could use. And they are quality. One from the University of Florida and one just simply called Open Source Phonics. So that was a surprise too in the sort of free, can't believe someone did all this.
Should we just click on it just to see?
Oh, sure. Just see
Awesome.
what it looks like.
Printable resources.
Yeah. And lesson planning support, importantly.
Wow.
Yeah, well designed, easy to use. So that's their guidelines for teachers, which is just terrific, very visual.
Art word cards.
It looks like they have a symbol system accompanying the phonics and the sounds. I haven't looked into it, but it looks very appealing and very useful. Yeah.
Word work mat. Wow.
That's great.
Awesome.
I hope
Lots of
people,
resources.
they are once you get going. Yeah.
Perfect. And the other one?
That's okay.
Yep.
We better be careful of our time. So make sure people have some time to explore. How are we doing, Monica?
It's 3:53, so we have time.
We have time?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, so now that you have seen a lot of the resources, examples, I think some of you already navigated and found some of the resources helpful, or something you already have seen before and you're now finding it on the collection website. What we thought we would do is, rather than doing breakout rooms, we wanted to give you a bit of time to explore on your own and then kind of get your feedback and ideas and suggestions afterwards. So we want to suggest that we take around 10 minutes to give you a chance to explore the collection on your own. So I'm going to post the link to the collection on the website in the chat, and that way you will be able to click on it and navigate and then explore on your own. When we come back, I'm going to put in timer on the screen When we come back, we are going to ask you more questions and then have a kind of conversation about how this collection can evolve going forward. Is that correct, Christine and
Yep.
Guylaine?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So when you look at the resources on the collection website, we really hope that you can note the resources that almost work for you, but could work better if they were modified. And we will have a question around that a bit later. Also, we want to hear about any issues you experience with the site, problems, improvements you may want to see to make the site a bit better, and then what's missing. There's lots of resources you may know about that we didn't have a chance to include, or was reviewed, but potentially because of the criteria wasn't included. Then we can clarify why it wasn't included. So just to get ideas and suggestions from you and give you time and space to navigate now as we are here together. I hope that's okay with everyone. So we are going to set the timer. So it's 3:55. We're going to come back at 4:05 and then kind of reconvene with the next part of the showcase. I hope that's okay. Take the time to explore and ask questions as we go along with Christine and Guylaine. Is that okay? Thumbs up? Perfect. Going to put the timer on. I'm just trying to find my timer because I opened a lot of different things. Classroom. Perfect. So we have the timer going. And see you soon. Now I can see some of you had to leave a bit earlier. That's totally okay. We understand the different time commitments. There was a question if the session is being recorded, and it is, and it will be shared with everyone within the next day or so, just for us to download it, edit it, and make sure that everything is working. Just very quickly, Lisa, just to let you know, we can hear you, so your audio is working. Welcome.
Thank you. Still trying to.
Okay, we have around 3 more minutes before we come back. There's lots of great feedback and ideas coming in the chat. Please note your questions, note suggestions or resources you find very helpful and useful, something you may want to use in the future. We want to hear from you, okay? So 3 more minutes. Thank you so much for the feedback coming in the chat. Almost there, almost there. I really hope you had a good time exploring the resources. And found some nuggets in there that will be helpful. We are not finishing yet. Don't leave if you don't have to. I know some of you had to go away, but if you can stay for a bit longer to share with us, explore with us. There's some great feedback in the chat from participants who had to leave and left us some comments. But one thing I just wanted to check in with everyone. So I'm going to go back to our slides and bring Christine and Gillian back to our session as well. Here we go. Let's make sure that you can see the screen. Can you let me know if you can see the cloud with OER, Open Educational Resources? Thumbs up. Perfect. Fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to start with the chat very briefly, and then Christine and Gillian and everybody else, please feel free to chime in as we are exploring as well. So one of the very quick responses we got was from, let me just quickly see. I have to find my response here. I lost it. Rosemary. So Rosemary, I know you shared in the chat that you're using some of the resources in your class with your students. If you're here and are willing to turn on the video and chat with us for a second, how are you using and what resources are you using?
Okay, I used your vocabulary. I did touch on the math, but I focused more on the vocabulary and incorporated flashcards, grammar, writing, and for example, there was one on plants. So they may look at a tree and say, well, that's a tree, it's not a plant. So then it evolves all that, they come in different categories. Then adjectives, the shapes of these plants, these shrubs, and the fruits, and how do we had a nutrition session on it as well. So I just do a holistic thing on the vocabulary. I focus on that quite a bit because some of my spellers are not all that great. And then we did writing on it as well, like using some of the words. So I did like 1 week, I would choose one little cat. I just subdivided them from the great big Venn diagram. And then it took quite a while. I still haven't finished it. And the plants that grow different countries, the tropical, the temperate, and so they were really, really enthralled with the whole thing. Flashcards also.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that. That's one of the amazing resources that I think it was a retired professor created the website, and the concept around core vocabulary, the idea of teaching vocabulary with like concepts. And it's so great to hear someone use it and do a review, which makes me think this is something we need to do more of. So we could actually get some firsthand accounts of what other instructors have found useful, and importantly, how how people have decided to use it in their classes. That's terrific. Thanks so much, Rosemary.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And let's just open the floor. I know some of you put the comments in the chat. This is fantastic. Christine, if there's anything that kind of speaks to you, or you may want to comment on the chat and some of the suggestions and resources. Any other suggestions before we continue with a bit of a quick question for you as well? But I don't want to go there yet unless there's somebody who wants to share a bit more, because you did say that you're using the resources. Okay.
I know there was a comment about Ontario-centric stuff, not to be the center of the universe, but two things really. So yes, when it came to something like licensing or say voting, things we could expand upon, or there are different versions provincially and territorially. We haven't gone there. It partly because we are an Ontario funded organization, and partly because it was a lot of work. So we're limited in both of those, but you're correct. It would, but anytime we found something from another province that was just outstanding, like the BC open resources, I mean, that kind of thing, they're all included. Great resources about apprenticeship from Alberta. Yeah, those kinds of things are automatically just included. Okay.
Fantastic. And I'll just go back quickly to a comment from Simone, who also found some resources helpful. And Simone, just I'll spotlight you just to make sure if you want to comment as well. But you know, even behind the scenes, Simone has reached out to us asking for resources, and we try to address some of those questions as we go. So if you don't find something, or you find something that you think should be added to the collection, please let us know as well. Simone, your comment about the resources you found today during the search. What did you like about them?
Yeah, I had actually mentioned to Monica, you know, for us, we need to keep things simple and basic and really at the emergent levels. In our particular program specifically, we are working with students who are all deaf. They are deaf adult learners, of course, and they are very visual. They learn better accessing visual pictures, images, and they want to develop their reading skills, but it's emerging. And so visual tools are definitely much more supportive. And so we were looking for information around the citizenship test, and I spent hours looking for things. And so finally, after many hours, I said, Monica, can you please help? Do you have anything that you can suggest that I might be able to access that is citizenship topic, but for emergent readers? You know, we wanted to make sure that we had things that were not filled with lots of text, that the text was very simple. And that has been a difficult thing. So I still haven't come across anything on the resource, but if anybody has anything like that, that would be something that would be very, very helpful for our learners.
Yeah. And it goes back to the levels. I think Christine and Guylaine talked about the levels, you know, the level 1, 2, and 3. And even that sometimes doesn't fit that requirement that you may have. So we'll continue looking. There was another question also about driver's license resources, which Christine and Guylaine also included in the collection. So if you're looking for those resources, they're there as well. Perfect. All right. So looking
And
at
if
the
I can
time,
just add to that, Monica, when I was just looking through the resources right now, the OER resources, I wasn't able to explore everything, but I did find that I really liked. I just want to get the name. I wrote it down here. It was called the Core Vocabulary. Because that had the words and again those pictures to support that visual learning, which is supportive for our deaf learners. So I will continue to explore, but I did find a couple things, but that's one I wanted to mention.
perfect. Thank you, Simone. Really appreciate it. Okay, so we got some feedback from you, but there's a question we have through Slido that we hope will help us get some more information from you and also open the floor to some suggestions. So the question in Slido that we have is, did you find resources that you like, but they need to be modified for your use in some way? And if you did, feel free to share them on the screen. And Christine, I'll kind of hand it over to you. What do we mean by modifiable?
So we both noticed putting the collection together, especially when resources came from other jurisdictions. Right away, we run into some issues around changing some references and some content. So that's one kind of modification that a resource might need. I found a couple of great things, for example, from the Government of Canada. They allow reformatting, but everything's on their website. And you know, the Government of Canada website, it's sort of simple to read and scroll. But what if you wanted that information on slides, or would that information work better in a PDF? Those would be questions to explore. So perhaps we can just cut and paste all that format or all the content and put it into a different format. So that's another type of modification. There's lots of things that seems to be PDFs dominate, but maybe that's fine. But do they work as well in online environments? Do you need something that allows you to kind of go back and forth a bit more with your learners? So that's really what some of the modifications could entail.
Okay, so we can see some of the feedback coming in. Some of them are single words, some of them are sentences. So somebody specified that there was a resource you liked, but there was a copyright restriction. Again, let us know what's the resource. Maybe there's a way we can, we can chat about how that copyright works. Maybe there's another similar resource we can look for to help out. So don't feel restricted in a way by, our copyright information or what you just find. This is, like we're continuously searching and looking for things. And Christine, this may be a good time also to mention some of the planning for this year when it comes to the collection. Or Guylaine?
Sure. So our next step is to continue adding things as we learn about them. So please share your recommendations, but also to now work with people, a group of instructors on that modification task. And this might take a little longer. If you're interested, you think it's an interesting idea, you'll have a chance to follow up with us in the feedback form. But the idea would be to gather instructors together and prioritize, set the priority, what seems to be most pressing for needs, and focus on maybe making some modifications and then redistribute those resources that have been modified. Yeah.
Perfect. So I don't want to jump away, but I am going to jump into the section where we talk about feedback, because as Christine mentioned, as you know us with our virtual showcases, we do need feedback from you to continue to get ideas and so on. But this feedback form is slightly different as well. So I'm going to post the link to the form in the chat. And it is asking the general questions about the showcase session, but also if you feel you want to get involved in helping shape the OER collection in some way in the future, there's a section there where you'll be able to add your name. And also to clarify, it's set up in such a way that your original or initial feedback from the section is anonymous. So we're not asking you for your name there, but when you go to the end of the session feedback form and you hit submit, that's when you will have a chance to click on another link where you'll be able to provide your name and contact information if you would like to get involved in some way, or even if you have resources and ideas you want to share with Christine and Guylaine. So that will be a chance to do that there as well. Also, all of us, alphaplus.ca is our website. If you ever want to reach out to us after the session because you've got an idea, you found this amazing resource you feel we should add, feel free to reach out to us at any time. We love to connect and learn from each other. So don't forget that we are there to help. We have other services, coaching services. There's another showcase coming up in a month. We will have lots of things happening at the same time. Now, before you jump into the feedback and fill it out, if you don't do it now, we'll be sending you the link after the showcase together with the recording from today. But also, we just want to make sure that you know that recording, the slides from today, and if there's any additional resources that were discussed in the chat, we'll try to share them on our virtual showcase website. So we'll continue connecting with you, making sure that we are staying in touch and supporting you. And with that in mind, I know we have a few more minutes, so I want to give you some time for that feedback, but I just also want to mention that the upcoming showcase in a month is about planning a lesson. And that is actually a big working group that was coordinated by our colleague Olga, who is here. I can see you, Olga, on the screen. If you don't mind, I'll, feel free to unmute and say a few words if you would like about the upcoming session. But we are really excited to share it with you because this is a group that came together, that worked together, and they will be sharing with us a lot of ideas, resources, tips, handouts that you can use as well. So Olga, if you want to unmute and chat, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much, Monica. Yes, we're very excited for the showcase in June. I will be presenting, as well as Smita just turned on her
Yes,
her
please.
camera as well. She's on our working group. So we're a working group of six people in the Anglophone stream, and we looked at the notion of lesson planning flow. So with the eye towards skills development in how you make decisions around lesson planning, and taking into account real life frontline considerations around technology integration. So there have been robust discussions and a very, very helpful process. Our process will be showcased in the June showcase presentation, and we'll have a sneak peek at how the resources will be presented on a website. It's called the Planning a Lesson site, PAL, and it is intended to be your pal as you consider what to consider as you put your lesson together. Everybody knows how to deliver a lesson, but sometimes what our thinking and our considerations are, that was what we really did look at, and I think Smita would concur.
Perfect. And Smita, I can see you are unmuted. If you want to mention something, say something before we wrap up the information about the PAL session.
Yes, I'm also looking forward to it. And today, actually, I'm joined the meeting on both the devices because my internet is very unstable. So I'm talking through using my cell phone, and then the whole journey that started last July until it's ongoing still just came back like a flashback to me when Olga was just mentioning regarding our PAL working group. I think it would be appropriate to talk more about in depth maybe when we have the showcase, but it was my first time experience as a research participant in the group, although I did do some work during my teaching qualifications back in London in UK. So was very excited, very engaging, and really look forward to the session.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Smita. And then, just for everyone to think about, it's the idea of being resourceful like Smita, to devices to be able to connect. Smita has been very active in sharing resources, but also linking back. Today we are talking about resources that you're coming across. They have been reviewed. There are some tips and suggestions from our team on how you could be using them. Next month, you're looking at lesson planning. Maybe there's a way to bring those together. Maybe those two will support some of your work as you move forward in your teaching practice as well. So I really do hope you found the session helpful and informative. I could see a lot of excitement in the chat about some of the resources you were finding. Christine and Guylaine, I want to take the time to thank you and Rebecca for spending the time with us. We are going to stay here for a few more minutes to answer any additional questions or last minute comments, but I also want to give you that a few minutes time to do the feedback form before you log off for today. So I really appreciate all your time and the interest in what we are doing as well. Thank you. And Christine and Guylaine, any last words before we wrap up for today?
I think we've covered everything, and I can't wait to hear maybe requests as you continue to explore. That might take some time, but you can contact us many different ways, and as you continue to explore things, let us know if you come up with if only this was something, and tell it to us, and we'll add that to our list. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Guylaine.
And in the future, as you see that collection, people have made their resources available. So in the wider future, think about sharing back if you do work on some resources. Think of an open license so that others can use it.
Great point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the work behind the scenes doesn't get as much exposure, doesn't give us a chance to talk about it. So hopefully this was a good place and platform to share some of that, but also to make the connections. So if you feel again that you want to connect directly with some of us, please do that, because that's how we are building that community. and support for each other. Okay. All right. Fill out the survey. Let us know what you think. Register for the next session coming up in a month. June 18th, we are trying to fit it before the vacations and everything else starting and the school year end. So hopefully you'll be able to join us. And again, every recording and slides will be posted on the Virtual Showcase website, which also includes the recordings from our previous sessions. So if you missed some of the sessions we did in the past or didn't even know that we had them, feel free to go back and review them as well. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to stop the recording and let you go as well. If that's something you have to do, I can see some of you have to run.